Thanks everyone for joining us for another Node.js Community Committee meeting. This is for, it's going to happen again, the Thursday, October 1st. I had to look at my PC
It's a new
monitor.
month.
It is, yeah. Spooky month. If you are a member or if you're in the meeting directly and you want to go ahead. Oh yeah. Sorry, Michael. The red
Yeah,
hat,
no
the
problem.
parentheses made it
Yeah,
short
got
circuited my
it.
brain. If you could put your name in the Google Doc there and help us take notes, that would be fantastic. We can go ahead and get started with the agenda. So we do have a extremely light agenda today. So I think what we're going to be doing is talking a bit about, we're going to go over announcements and updates and then do that agenda item, which is just kind of a heads up request. And then from there, talk about issue 639 in the ComCom repo, which is an activity in ComCom and its future. From there, we should be good to go. Let's see here. This is okay. So let's start with initiative updates. I guess I'll start with that. I took some time on Tuesday, I believe, to sit down and go through the open examples PRs. So I've spent some time doing that. Looks like we're making progress on them. Specifically, there's two, one for Express and then one for IBM Cloud Functions. I think there's also two for Fastify. Those are pretty close to done. And then I left a decent amount of feedback on the others. Yeah, so those should be able to get merged and we should be able to have our first kind of set of PRs there.
Great. Yeah, I've got it on my list to work on that IBM Cloud Functions one. I'm actually checking my list here to make sure that I have it written down. Yeah, I do. Okay, good. Cool, that's exciting.
Cool. All right, I can go for mentorship. I think this is probably a pretty big section. So we have three really good candidates for the examples team. Tierney, we sent those over to you with our
yes, you did.
number one top pick, but figured a short list approach was better. We also have our onboarding guide, which is all set to use, which is our considerations for how to, recommendations for how to move forward. And I think those are like the two bigger highlights. Yeah.
Yeah, apologies for not getting back to you on that sooner here. I am swamped right now, but yes, I will get to you back to you about that by tomorrow, probably.
Okay, cool.
Probably.
Yeah. Well, ideally, you know, a mentee who's all set to help will get you some of that time back. Hopefully.
I can go next. That's okay. Hello, everyone. Hope everyone's doing well. It feels like I haven't spoken with everyone in a long time. But from the website redesign team, we are making progress. However, I have been noticing a few things that have come up, which, you know, I would like to address, but it would be better if you could also address it later in a private session, just because there are things that, you know, were anonymous to me, and Ben created those issues, which was, I know Trini saw it was creating new pages, such as having micro diagnostics and stuff like that. And I had brought up the issue that we don't have design. So, you know, to have it as follow a design language or have someone actually create designs and then submit them before creating those pages. But you know, things were created and I was extremely swamped with deadlines at work, and I wasn't able to check the PRs at that time, and you know, things got merged. And so things of that nature have been taken place. So I really wanted to actually see like what would be the next best steps in terms of getting those things sorted, because I don't want us just randomly creating pages and then they're next thing you know they're the main pages that we actually need people to be working on or need to be done are not getting done, and we have other like 5 or 6 pages that we need to figure out whether they follow everything and whether they're actually needed and so forth. Another second thing is that since I think the past 3 weeks, we have been trying to change the meeting time, because we did notice that from Thursday to Wednesday at 1800 UTC. So I will need to get access to change the time. So that way, more people, we took a poll again, more people are able to come in on Wednesdays at 1800 UTC time. So we definitely want to get that changed. So this week, today would be the last Thursday, 2 o'clock, like meeting for us. And then starting next week, we would like the newer time. And
Time do you want that to be? Like
1800 UTC. So that's what we decided
okay,
on Wednesdays.
1800 UTC in EST. I
That's
can
2
just
p.m.
drag it
EST.
over.
Yeah.
2. Okay, so I can
Okay.
just drag that over. So that will on Wednesday, you said, right?
Yes.
Okay, so that is changed in the calendar.
Okay. Yeah. Besides that, I don't have any updates. Those are the updates I do have.
In that case, we will also set aside some private time at the end. I'll set aside like 10 minutes. Hopefully, do you think that'll be enough?
Yeah, I think 10 minutes is sufficient.
Okay. Cool. Any other initiative updates? I pinged Ben for an initiative update. 1 second on internationalization. 1 second here. I have to actually open up correctly. Steven, cool. So it looks like they're trying to get more involved with G11N, which is, I think, globalization, which is now part of the Node internationalization repo or Node I18N repo. Alexander may be freed up for some more time on the infrastructure side of things soon. And they're looking to connect with internationalization or the website redesign folks again soon. So just wanted to give that a heads up. Okay, cool. Awesome. Any final things here?
I can do CPC updates.
Yes, please.
What has been going on? Let's see. I mean, one we have this concept of at-large projects, impact projects, and growth projects. And growth implies that there is some growing happening. So we've been kind of exploring that and figuring out like growth plans for projects and even taking it a step further and trying to figure out if growth makes sense for a project or if it should maybe be like a phase for any project. They can ask to have more resources to grow in some certain way, whether they are at large or impact. So anyway, we're kind of working through some of that stuff. Beyond that, moving the individual supporter program forward, which is pretty interesting. I recommend you take a look at that if you haven't yet. It's in the proposal directories. There's some interesting stuff going on there, including this concept of JavaScript Landia, which is a kind of fun little thing, engage folks with. And what else are we working on? I feel like I should always have a list in front of me instead of just trying to pull it out of my head. But Michael or Tierney, if there's anything else that comes to mind that you think we should raise. I mean, I guess the collaboration network is almost complete.
Yep.
And
yeah, so that Thunder board vote should be landing soon. I think, yeah, in terms of like, the things we're forgetting, if you subscribe to the jury's mailing list, you'll get the comprehensive set. So it's, I think, most important if we just bring here things that are, could affect the project. And I can't think of too much beyond what Joe has been mentioning.
Cool. Some licensing stuff, but that's, I think that's fine for this group.
Sort of more guidance and documentation is, I think that something that might be worth mentioning is they did mention that the standards working group is kind of going through it sounded to me like a reimagining, like, hey, what should we focus on? We could do that kind of stuff. So if you've ever had an interest on that front, or, we're wondering what's going on, it might be a good time to listen in to get some,
Mhm.
it's probably a good
Yeah,
opportunity
good
to
point.
kind of learn what people are thinking on that front.
Mhm. Perhaps help shape it.
Exactly.
Cool. Any updates from the board, Michael, or are we good?
I don't have anything to bring back from the board, and I don't have anything on the list that I'm aware of that new things that need to be taken back. We are still waiting for some guidance on things like DCO handling.
Got you. Yeah, that is one of the things that I've thought about, is how does that impact ComCom? Because we did someone mute me? I got a message that said the host has muted you despite being the host. Is my audio okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're okay now. You
Okay.
cut out for a second.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that, like, once we get that tooling, we probably will need to start following that in ComCom.
I think we need to
generally don't
apply
think
it
we do.
to
Yeah.
all projects, right? Like we
Yep.
had an interpretation at one point,
That
and
kind of
this
fell
is
by the wayside.
we've been through, well, I wouldn't say that, like there's an interpretation, but over time, and having joined the OpenJS Foundation, it's a good time to revisit that and improve things. So hopefully we're getting close to the point where we'll have some tooling that helps us do that, and we'll need to implement across the repos.
Yep.
Kind of the way I'd put it. But yeah, so there's been discussion and feedback, and so I think we're hopefully waiting for the last step, which is like, here's what you should do, and here's the documentation, that tooling that goes along with it.
Yep. Sounds good. Anything else that we need to discuss, or anything on that specifically?
Nope.
Okay then. In that case, we should move on to the one agenda item. This is specifically issue 551 in admin. I've put it in the Zoom chat. This is just a request to add a Slack webhook. I guess I don't need to say this here. I have no objection to this, but we should take a look at this because I believe it needs some approvals from ComCom members.
Yeah, the current process, I think, is two from each, or at least
it's
one.
2 from each. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah, so if folks could review that and then give it their feedback, that would be wonderful.
yeah, I think depending on
awesome.
how you count me, we need at least.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think we just hit. I think we hit enough. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
we're
no,
probably
we
okay
need
now,
one more
so.
person. But yeah, we should be fine.
Okay, there we go.
I will remove the agenda label. Cool. Yeah. So if you have time, review that and give it feedback. Perfect. Okay. So I guess we are going to use the rest of this time. By the way, thank you to whoever's been taking minutes. Greatly appreciated. Going to use the rest of this time. Hold on, let me just add a note here. Minutes. We're going to use the rest of this time to talk about the kind of future inactivity and movement of ComCom, and like future movement of ComCom. So let's we can kind of go ahead and get started with that. One thing I will ask is just if people can, like, while they're not speaking, help take notes. It's super helpful. Okay, so I guess where do we want to start? Like, what are the things we find valuable in this discussion? And I know I'm the person who kind of created the issue, but I'd really like to get others' perspective on it, and thoughts.
Yeah, I see some that Joe pasted in.
Yeah, I was just thinking about it today, just trying to
Yeah.
like brainstorm some questions that might guide the discussion per se.
Right.
Um,
I'd even just add to that, like, is the current level of activity a problem?
Yeah, that's fair.
mhm.
I'd also look at yeah, so for context, for those who are like watching on stream or otherwise like listening, the questions that Joe pasted were like, should ComCom continue to exist? What benefit is ComCom currently providing? What is its overarching purpose? Are we currently serving that purpose and providing that benefit? If not, what should we be doing better? Which I think also includes, are we doing it well enough, or like, are we doing what we need to be doing? If so, cool. Yeah.
And it's, I just pasted that list into the minutes.
Okay, cool.
So if
Perfect.
people have connected in through the issue, there the link is there if they want to look more directly too.
Yeah. So on the first one there, should ComCom continue to exist? ComCom was initially started because, or in Node, around like the sense that we really do care about the community and we want to enable it and kind of do a lot of work to, or there was a group of people who wanted to do work to continue to enable the community and give it more, both give it a voice and have some kind of focus within the project, since core at the time wasn't super engaged externally. Like, it was very, very kind of closed off. Maybe that's not the best phrasing. There was a set of people who kind of worked on core, and getting past the barrier of getting into that set of people and like getting into a space where core was something that you could come and work on, or we could get feedback for core effectively, was a much higher barrier than I think it is now. I'm not saying it's not a high barrier still, but I'm not passing any kind of judgment on that. I'm more just saying that's kind of where it originally came from my understanding.
I think, yeah, like
And
what I added to that was, I think the motivation was for a stronger voice for community growth and support for non-technical work.
Yeah.
Right. And what you describe is kind of one of the reasons, maybe, that fed into why that was needed. But the real motivation was like, we wanted a stronger voice, and at least from my perspective, on those areas, and that's what the community ComCom was sort of formed to focus on, without having to have people like either try and change the role of the technical steering committee to do that, right?
Yeah.
It was like create a place where people who were interested in that side of things could collaborate, and give it a voice, in terms of, that's why it had a board representation, but give it a strong voice in the project that didn't require you necessarily, becoming a core contributor and making it to the TSE.
Yeah. And I think that we've done a pretty decent job of that with various kinds of things. Yeah, and we've, I think we've definitely evolved over time and found things that work and things that don't. And I think that art also largely is a factor of folks who are around and able to invest time and energy. Like, I think a lot of the things that we would consider successful have been because there's been someone to participate and meaningfully engage in that, which I am not surprised by. Like, I think that makes sense. So I guess as an extension of that, one of the things that I have seen more recently I mean, there's two things actually. Two things has just been one, there's been less activity, and so that kind of velocity has slowed, which is not a judgment or bad. It's just at least the observation that I've had. And then the other thing is that like there is, I think a lot of the kind of administrative work that we end up doing is more of node project admin rather than ComCom admin, which kind of has led me down the path of thinking that like having the admin repo as a shared space between ComCom and the TSC is potentially a good thing. Like it is currently a shared space, but what I more mean is like having a lot more of the work done in that repo could potentially be a positive future, I guess, where like yes, ComCom exists and runs these things, but like more of the like governance work lands in that repo, and like we can move both of our governance in there or something like that, like kind of merging the efforts but still having the two distinct groups into a single space is something that I've thought about and talked with TSC members about. And I've talked with a few ComCom members about it too. But like thinking about things like that around like, is there an adaptation of how we want to work and work with the projects, like the broader project outside of ComCom, is something that I'd also like to kind of like have on the table a bit, or have like, we don't need to, I guess, stay within the bounds of what we've currently done if we think that there's a more effective path for us to work well. That was a bit of a ramble. I apologize.
Right. I guess the like,
Yeah.
I think the challenge and angst is probably about the thing that we have the same problem with on the technical steering committee side too, is available people time.
Yep.
And people with the time to really spearhead and lead work, right?
Yeah.
And I guess there's kind of two aspects to that, right? If we don't have people who are sort of saying, hey, I want to lead and charge forward in a particular area, that is, that's maybe unfortunate, but I don't know that it's something that we can try and like go out and identify and find people and like bring them in, but that in itself is a fair amount of work and you need a volunteer to do that, right? So there's the kind of things like, it's a shame we're not doing stuff that you'd really like to do. But on the flip side, if we can't find anybody interested enough, maybe it's not a big enough problem that we have to solve it, right? Or I guess I'm just sort of wondering as well, like there's things that are like real problems, which we think are doing like harm. And, those are the kinds of things that if the ComCom isn't jumping on and figuring out how to resolve, then we definitely have a problem. And then there's things where we'd really like to do more, but realistically, with the people that we have interested or whatever, we're not making progress on, but doesn't mean we're worse off than we were yesterday, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's part of like, we could think about is like, are there things that really like are must-haves that aren't happening? Because, that would be an area where, okay, maybe we need to figure out and focus on like the time that we do have in these meetings on like, those are truly problems, and that, we need to, for example, if the working groups are trying to get work done and the ComCom members are always a bottleneck, that seems like a thing that we should really think about to try and not slow things down, right?
Yeah.
If it's that we'd like to see more involvement in something and like to have us be accomplishing more, then like that's okay. Well, if none of us has the cycles to step up to make that happen, that just may be the way it is.
I mean, I think that's a good question. Like, what do we think more of should be happening is kind of a question. But I also wanted to just say something I've been thinking about is that we have a few people on this call that are, newer to this space, at least than, Michael, myself, Tierney, and even Rachel. I encourage you all to ask questions or put in your thoughts, because I think, you know, new thinking and new ideas and people new to the space could be helpful in this conversation. That's an invitation, but don't feel any pressure. But yeah, so I guess my question stands though, like what do we think specifically is lacking? I mean, I think that there's some busy work that needs doing that would be helpful if you know, some folks jumped in on. You know, an obvious one is the meeting minutes. But also, you know, Tierney and I have kind of collected some other things in the past that should be, we should probably move to issues and try to get done, like some updating of process and README and even on the website and stuff like that. But, you know, I don't know if that's enough to be making a fuss about an activity. What are some other thoughts that people think we're perhaps lacking in? Well, I guess we're all right.
Right, like that's sort of where I was coming to as well. Like some of these other questions, like should it continue to exist? Like is the, you know, the stronger voice for community growth and support for non-technical work, I don't think that's changed necessarily, right? So having a place where people can come and try and advocate and lead for things is probably still, at least in my mind, still makes sense. The fact that we don't have as many people doing that as we'd like is kind of a different tangent, right? But it's kind of like, just because we don't have today, we shouldn't like break down things that maybe will be useful tomorrow for those in that context.
I feel that the ComCom is actually pretty useful, at least in my terms. I would say that when I joined, I was pretty new, and you know, we didn't have any sort of leadership or assertive direction in the website redesign team, or in, you know, in that, and you know, trying to figure out what needs to be done. And I think that becoming regular to these ComCom meetings actually helped me in understanding what actually needs to be done and how I can support and guide and help all the other members of the community who are actually trying to help and develop. And I think that is what's adding value. You know, like I see that there's not a lot of involvement, but if it's adding value in any sort of way, I think it's not useful. I think it's, well, definitely, as you mentioned, lack of involvement, but not people are not being involved doesn't mean that it's not useful. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate that perspective, Divya.
Yep.
You know, Tierney, you have 4 bullet points in this original issue. Do we want to talk about those?
Sure. Let me open it up, because I usually am not a tabs person. I have so many tabs open right now. It's not a good time. Yeah. So the 4 points I had, just for a refresher, and I'll put the link again in the.
It's in there.
You already did. The 4 points were: currently have a handful of members who don't meaningfully engage in ComCom work outside of being a member and occasionally commenting on issues and or attending meetings. I think that has somewhat self-fixed. I think maybe 1 or 2 left, but no, I don't really even think that. So, you know, we have a limited number of, or we you know, that was a problem previously. You know, I think that's just like a at this point with our current membership, that's a ability to dedicate work time to it and things like that, and it goes in and out for some people. Like not everyone is in the position that Joe and I and Michael are, which is, and I think Rachel too, you know, which is relatively privileged in our ability to contribute during work. So, you know, I think that has relatively solved itself with some of the folks who are completely inactive kind of stepping out, into emeritus. So I'm just reading this again. Yeah. So one of the challenges that I have faced, having been chairperson for I think 3 years or 2 years now, and then either going into a third or a fourth, has been that the way things were originally set up was meant to be very it was meant to follow the path that Node originally set out. I think it was largely defined by Michael Rogers, which was basically if you come in and if you kind of participate, you become a member, and then you're there forever. Like there was never a path to onboarding. And like even at the time when Michael kind of had set Michael Rogers, not Michael Dawson, when Michael had set this up, that was a thing that like I had identified to him as a challenge of like, well, if someone's like either actively detracting or because we have this consensus seeking model, we generally want a larger number of people to respond. If we can't get 10% of the people, what's the path here? I think that this was kind of a slight evolution of that, of how we ask people to step down, and if they have any kind of response that's not a affirmative yes, I'm going to step down, they stay on, which I think with the addition of the concept of emeritus or emeriti, and I think that should probably be refined a bit, just because it would allow us to kind of focus on what we're doing as a group without having to have additional concerns of like, cool, we're trying to get consensus or feedback from someone or a vote from someone who hasn't been super active, and like despite saying they'll try to be active, hasn't been able to make that happen. And so like I think that's one thing that needs to be refined, is like that has been a consistent challenge as chairperson for years, is just how to deal with that in a way that's like useful, because nobody has, well, outside of recently, nobody has, when I followed up with them on that, there was never a yes, I'll back off of this.
No, I haven't. I don't think we've had too many votes that I remember.
We used to.
That being a problem. I just mean recently.
Yeah.
Like I haven't seen, like today, that doesn't seem to be a super big issue in terms of, votes or waiting on people or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's fair. And I guess the thing I would say is that it is an administrative overhead that I think we should probably like. It is a moderately dysfunctional strategy, and like if it's just me that goes in and does this work to address this, I'm totally fine with that. But it is something that I think would be beneficial for us to change, both in terms of that and then just in general looking at how our governance docs work and seeing if there's improvements. Because there's like, I mean, honestly, there's the final bullet point there is many of our core documents are obviously outdated. And I have brought this up, but neither myself nor others have meaningfully worked on this. Like I when I started getting involved in ComCom, that was one of the things I did a lot of, was maintain those documents. That has kind of fallen off as I have to take on other things and like do other things in ComCom and in the project and other projects. And it's something I can try to pick up again. But that
I'm
is
sorry to
one thing
interrupt
we
you,
should try to do. Yeah, go ahead.
So I think, perhaps these light agendas we've had for the last few meetings are a bit of a gift, and maybe we should be taking these meetings, do the agenda and then start working through some of these things. I think, just going through the docs as a group might be good, and one person can kind of be taking notes or opening issues or even starting
or editing as we speak.
Yeah, exactly. Let's
right. Like I think it's just based on the suggestion, it's like it's one thing to say, okay, we've got a meeting every 2 weeks. We can come, we can provide, you can participate in that. Async things then take another level of commitment, right? Or, finding the time among your people's busy days. And so combining those two, like there's things that you want to do, the meeting is useful for just because you can quickly like, hey, there's this problem, let's talk about it. But given that, like Joe says, the agendas have been light, trying to take the rest of the hour to do these things would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I'll just wrap up by saying, sometimes like I understand that there's a lot in ComCom documentation that is outdated, and I'm a little overwhelmed by it. So that's like a little bit preventative for me. But if we just started to look at it as a group and peel off little bits here and there, then I think people would be more encouraged to be like, oh, I can take care of that, and we isolate.
We should just delete some of it.
Yep.
Right. Like basically if there's something we haven't updated, we should, and it hasn't mattered.
Yeah.
We should just say, can we just delete that? Right. Like there'll be some core governance and some core things that we need, but the rest of it is like, yeah, this made sense at the time. Nobody's invested in it now. Gone. Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I've got this
totally.
locked, so I'm happy to work on it here and then peel off actionable items. That I think that'll be really great.
Any outside of Joe, Michael, and myself, any thoughts or feedback on that recommendation?
My feedback is basically that I think that is a very good suggestion. If we can actually use the time and make it more productive in these meetings, and if we feel that we're going to be able to get somewhere and get things done in a more cohesive manner, then I am all up for it. And here's the thing, like we can give it a try. Like I don't think there's any sort of loss or harm in trying something. And if it doesn't work, we can say, hey, it didn't work. But if it works, it's something great. And I think that would help us out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it could be too a way for people who are newer to ComCom to get more familiar with some of the internal workings and to get more involved. Frankly, I would propose that we throw a high level issue or maybe multiple if we can capture a couple of areas that we want to start addressing, and we can just start working on them. And if we had an issue too, we could drop in particular things about that high level area, like say ComCom membership or onboarding or any of the aspects of documentation that we want to update. Does that make sense? Should I even start creating an issue or something?
I think that's a good idea. Sorry, I have a lot of sensory input right now. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I think I can also, like, for what it's worth, I can probably spend some time and go through and create issues for each of the distinct things that need to, or that I see that need to be done. If other folks want to do that, please, I encourage and welcome that. But since I'm the one bringing it up, I feel like I should probably commit to some of that work.
I'll just say really quickly. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Michael. You got a little bit quiet there, Michael.
I was just gonna say, top of my head is like, maybe let's create one issue with a list of things, because otherwise we'll be complaining we have too many issues, right? If you know what I mean, like let's actually open issues maybe as we plan to work on them. Like, maybe it doesn't make sense. I'm just like saying, let's not create a bunch of more stuff that we then have to figure out whether we've closed or opened.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't think we should go crazy, but I think if there are distinct areas that make sense, then we can have 2 or 3 or 4 issues, and that'll be fine too, and we can prioritize them. Sure. You got quiet too, Michael. I don't know what.
Yeah, your mic's real quiet.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I thought you saw quiet and not talking. Is that any better?
No, it's still a little bad.
Huh.
Anyway.
Okay. Your input might have changed.
Yes.
That is possible. Yeah.
Oh,
it
you
sounds
got louder there, but yeah.
only a little bit though. And Tierney, I would just say, because I know a lot of this work falls on you, don't start with high level stuff and let us all,
Fair enough.
get involved and spread the work out.
Yep.
I just
Sounds good.
promoted Ahmad too.
Oh, my bad.
No. I just noticed.
Cool. Cool. I think there was one other point in that issue. I clicked out of it. Hold on one sec.
And just to update Ahmad while you're looking, we're talking about the inactivity and ComCom issue, and the kind of consensus is that since we've been having light agendas, that we will use the ComCom meetings to start to work on some of the things that we think we need to work on, and like the documentation and process and stuff is one thing that we think we could start to tackle as a group.
What the other open thing there, or the other bullet point there, was many issues, PRs, and other basic ComCom work generally go like moderately unattended. So like that's something like closing or PRing and closing out the 7 current meeting agenda issues that are open.
Mm-hmm.
And like certain PRs sometimes go or just don't get attention really. Like kind of have to ping people to get them in. So I don't really know a solution to that. I think that's largely a function of attention and time, or like available time. One thing that we could potentially do, at least for PRs, is like have a random assignee thing that'll just assign like balance who it assigns issues to or PRs to randomly, and allow us to at least potentially get a triage in and spread that work around. It's not like it's a particularly high load of PRs that we get. Like I have the only open one right now, and it's blocked on a downstream dependency because I want to do markdown link checking since we have a lot of dead links. I often find dead links. I don't think we have a lot, but I sometimes find them. But yeah, something like that might help out just in terms of like us and being able to, because it generally seems like when I ping people, it gets looked at. So having an automated ping or like automated assignee maybe could be helpful there. But maybe that's just me trying to find a solution to it in a way that isn't actually a solution to the thing that we're trying to solve.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts on that? Okay. What time are we at? Okay. I said we'd leave 10 minutes at the end for private session, so I will go ahead and do that. I will end the stream now. Thanks y'all for joining. And we are going to ask non-ComCom members to dip, except for Divi, who is the one who brought up the private discussion. So I will actually, yeah, hold, stick around for just a minute. I'm going to end the stream. Thanks, y'all.